Magic never has only one direction. And if you're building a fantasy world, it is very important to think about the consequences of magic. Limits, taboos, and consequences are fundamental for your world building, especially when you're creating a magic system. Hi, I'm Wild. I'm a fantasy author and artist, sharing my process on building a fantasy world and bring it to life. And in this series, we already talked about the consequences of magic being one of the most fundamental rules for creating a believable magic system. And in this video, I would love to introduce you to the consequences of magic through the Thal'ithara. Make sure to stick till the end because I've got something helpful waiting for you. In the last video, we talked about the fundamentals of the Thal'ithara, what it is, how it awakens, and how archetypes, resonances, and manifestations shape a person's magic. The examples I showed there weren't meant to be fixed subclasses or predefined set of abilities. You can think of the archetypes a little like classes in D&D, but only as a starting framework. They give your magic a basic direction without defining a fixed set of abilities or spells. Your archetype remains the root, your resonance shapes how the magic develops, and your own experience determine what the final manifestation looks like. So every manifestation is individual, but it still follows an underlying structure. It has to grow from the nature of the archetype it originates from, and the resonances that shape it. But if magic is that closely tied to who you are, what happens when that connection becomes unstable? What happens when you push it too far, or when your own magic begins to turn against you? If we think about consequences, we need to think what magic demands from us. What happens when your own magic turns against you? When fear, obsession, grief, emotional suppression, or inner conflict begin disrupting a person's connection to their magic. In Ananthara, the magic begins reflecting that instability. This unstable state is known as chaos. Using your magic drains your energy, just like working a 9 to 5 and coming home exhausted. Just like our own health, magic destabilization develops in stages. At first, the signs may be subtle: fatigue, loss of focus, weakened precision, unstable output, or small unintended magical outbursts. The early warning signs, also called strain in my world. But if the bearer continues to push beyond sustainable limits, the magic can begin to break out, which leads us to chaos. In Ananthara, chaos is the consequence of chronic internal suffering, abuse, suppression, etc. Chaos is the stage where the Thal'ithara no longer responds consistently to the conscious intent. Instead, magical output begins reacting to pressure, unresolved conflicts, emotional overload, exhaustion, or fractured resonance. Chaos is not evil. It does not mean the bearer is corrupted by an outside force, for example. It means the magic has lost stable coherence and has begun responding unpredictably. Chaos magic often appears in 3 escalating forms. In this video, I will only give you a short insight on how this could unfold. If you want to dive deeper, the link is in the description. Let's start with number 1, magical instability, the loss of control. The earliest stage of chaos often causes unpredictable behavior. When internal conflict begins affecting the bearer's resonance, magic stops responding consistently. Sudden, uncontrolled outbursts may happen when moments of fear, grief, anger, exhaustion, or emotional weakness trigger magical reactions the bearer never intended. Unpredictable effects may also begin appearing, like healing magic unintentionally could spread decay instead of restoration. Protective magic may become destructive. Number 2, the subconscious manifestation. Magic reflecting the internal conflict. In extreme cases, the magical manifestation may begin behaving autonomously because unresolved emotions and internal contractions have become powerful enough to continuously shape the magical expression without the individual consciously realizing they are doing so. Someone consumed by self-hatred may begin experiencing magical manifestations that externalize their darkest thoughts. A shadowy presence, a distorted reflection, or an invisible force constantly feeding internal suffering back onto itself. Number 3. Severe manifestations, when inner collapse deepens. If chaos continues for prolonged periods, magical destabilization may begin manifesting in way more dangerous forms than just any kind of shadow figures. The magic keeps drawing from the bearer, even when there is no strength left to give. So you can think of it like the magic itself drains your life force. Some bearers gradually lose not only control over their magic, but the structure that allowed their magic to express it all. These later stages are known as the fractured. The fractured is a chronic destabilization. A fractured bearer may produce magic that appears delayed, incomplete, repetitive, hollow, excessive, or unstable. Their manifestation may no longer carry the same clarity, no longer carry the same precision, or recognizable force it once had. The faded, however, are like the complete collapse of magical identity. The faded represent the final stage of magical destabilization. Not everyone who loses balance simply loses control over their magic. Some lose far more than that. The horror of the faded is not death, but likely watching a person slowly forget the language of themselves. Their magic becomes like a spellbook left in the rain. The ink still exists in places, but the meaning begins to slowly wash away. As the collapse deepens, memories may fade, desires may weaken, emotional depth may disappear, and the bearer may lose connection to the passion, relationships, and inner truth once shaped their magic. Some faded lose access to their magic entirely. I would love to make a shortcut to the people who do not wield magic at all. Because if we are going to speak about the consequences, isn't it important to talk about the people who were not gifted with magic because of specific consequences of magic? In Ananthara, people with no magical abilities are called the Untouched. The Untouched are individuals whose spark never awakened. The potential exists and it is there, but it just never ignited. Reasons for that could include fear of magic, trauma, emotional suppression. Even a life without purpose or conviction can make the awakening difficult as well. There are more reasons listed in the blog below if you want to dive deeper into the Untouched. But if everyone in Ananthara has the potential to awaken magic, what happened that the Untouched even exists? And here we are not only building a magic system, but also starting to build the world around it. In Ananthara, there was a big event called the Great Purification at the age of the Blood Rain. Short, people at the time lost their magic through trials that were designed to ensure that the Thal'ithara, the magic, could only be wielded by those deemed worthy and controllable. Those who failed lost the ability to use magic. But with that, they lost even more than that. Their memories were taken or altered, and their identity vanished completely, like until all that was left was only a vessel striving through the world. Which leads us to the faded in my world, which shows us again how deep consequences can reach beyond just using magic. Let's summarize the consequences of magic in Ananthara. The Untouched are the people whose magic never awakened. The strain is a warning. Chaos is active destabilization. Fractured is the chronic breakdown, and the faded are the total collapse. Together, these stages show that the Thal'ithara is powerful, but not limitless. I hope that the insight I gave you into my world could help you get more ideas for your own. If you would love to dive deeper and want to learn how to create your own magic system for your fantasy world, I created a workbook and a free checklist that guides you through creating your own magic system step by step, with tasks and questions I ask myself while building the Thal'ithara. And if you would like to know your role inside Ananthara, I created a quiz that lets you discover your race, your homeland, your magic, and your personal background story in Ananthara. You can find the link down below as well. Tag me on Instagram once you downloaded the character sheet at the end. I would love to welcome you in Ananthara. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you got any more questions questions or if this video helped you in the comments. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell, and follow for more world building progress, tips, and creative projects. See you in Ananthara and stay safe on your travels. Goodbye.
Chronicles they now hold will